The outgoing head of the NPA, Shamila Batohi, has briefed the media for the last time on the institution's status. She's stepping down after 7 years at the helm, becoming the first head of the NPA since 1998 to complete a full term. My colleague Iman Rappetti attended the briefing, joins us live from Pretoria. Iman, good afternoon to you. Quite an interesting tone from Shamila Batohi.
Very much so, Stephen, and I'm not going to labour too much on the details in that annual report, except where it applies in on specific issues. But you saw the report card that she shared, and those statistics are there in terms of the innovations under this NDPP, in terms of the creation of IDAC, the Tutuzela care centres, and a list of other things. I want to talk about what's next, the legacy that she leaves behind, and whether she'll be leaving Andy Motibi a bottle of brandy in his drawer in her office when he takes up his new role. So good afternoon. How did you feel standing up there? It is the last day. And Bulelwa, in introducing you, was saying it's a sad day, it's a good day, but it's also a strange day. How's it been this last final week for you?
I think saying it's a strange day is actually the right way of putting it, because I still have files on my desk, and I've packed up my office, so they're all in boxes. But I was signing documents this morning. I still have files on my desk, so it felt like I was still coming back to work today, like a normal day. But yet it's the last day. So walking in this morning, as I thought, gosh, this is probably the last time that I'm going to be, well, as the NDPP, definitely the last day, but I probably will be around to meet some of the dear colleagues and friends. But I think it's strange because waking up on Monday, I don't know what I'm going to be thinking, but at the same time, I feel that it's time for maybe a change, so I don't feel sad. I feel I have run my course and it's time for a change. And so whatever happens tomorrow will be another day. So at the moment, maybe it's kind of, I'm in denial, that it's my last day here. It hasn't really, I don't know, it's a strange day. That's why I said.
Understandable. So any inkling as to what your future looks like? I mean, people often say, I'm going to go tend my cows on my farm, or I'm going to go do gardening. Realistically, what have you been thinking about as your next?
I'm certain that my future is not going to be like when people are going to be analyzing my every move, my every word, and I think that sense of maybe liberation, because I'm getting out of the straitjacket of a national director, in a sense. I think I look forward to that liberation because, it's been a very challenging kind of 7 years. But I hasten to add, one of the most purposeful things I have ever done in my life. And so as hard as it's been, especially the past 2 months, I still do not regret coming back to South Africa. And because one of the greatest things in life as human beings we can do is to serve our people. And for me, I think I can rest easy that I have done what I could do. I wouldn't rest easy if I felt there were things that me as Shamila Batohi I could have done that I didn't do. And so I feel that Andy Motibi coming in, yes, I think he'll need more than a bottle of brandy. I don't know if he drinks, though. I think...
find out what his poison is.
I'll find out what it is. And but I guarantee him he will have all the support of an incredibly good institution of thousands of good people across the country that really fight for the rule of law.
I know that it's Friday. I know that it's your last day. I know that you will have a glass of Sauvignon Blanc a little bit later on when it's appropriate, probably with some of the ladies in the office and some of your other team members. But on a serious note, it brings you to the end of an historic chapter. You are the first NDPP. Whatever, and we'll get into some of the details about what that was like, because it's interesting you use the word straitjacket and incarceration. We'll talk about the liberation, rather, your day of liberation, and the antithesis to that would be incarceration. But what do you think it took for you to see this out until the very last day? And I counted the number of days, 2,555 days.
Wow, I didn't even know that. When I came in initially, I started off with an incredible sense of that this job was going to be the most important chapter of my life. And I've been now a prosecutor for 40 years this year. And so I felt this last chapter was the most important because of what it entailed, because of where South Africa had come through with the dark days of state capture. And so, you know, all of that was really, really something that drove me, that brought me with the energy that I still have. But let me tell you that I very quickly realized that this was never going to be a quick fix. I didn't think it was going to be a quick fix, but let me say, I didn't think it was going to take as long as it did. And so, you know, I had no leadership. Then we got into COVID. You know, the world stopped. So it was only in 2021, after we came out of hard lockdown, that we started the rebuilding. And that is 5 years exactly. And it has been, what has helped me get through this is my deep philosophy in life and my study and the good people around me that have always, you know, made sure that we stay firmly on course. My philosophy that also teaches me to forget the noise. You know, the noise out there is so intense. And whether it's noise from the media, from parliamentarians, from ordinary citizens on X, it is, and Bulelwa is here. I said to Bulelwa, don't tell me what's happening on X. I don't want to know. But we need to understand what is our purpose, what's our objective as the NPA, forget the noise and remain committed to our path. And so remaining firmly focused on the objectives and the support of a number of incredibly good people, my EXCO team, DPPs, our HR, across the support services. Yeah. It's what, and my deep philosophy, as I said, is what made me always, when I go through hard times and things have been really hard, I would just say to myself, just remember why you're doing this. Just remember why you're doing this. And who's in your mind when you're saying that to yourself? When I say that to myself, I am doing this because of my obligation to the people of this country. And in my own spiritual journey, what is my obligation in life? I mean, we all try to understand what's our obligation. What is our true obligations? It's not like I need to go to this friend's party today and I need to do this. What's the true obligation? And I came back to South Africa with a firm understanding that I was doing this because it was what my inner purpose was in life. And so I always said to myself, when times were dark, just remember why you're doing this. And then it helps you look beyond the noise and just focusing on the people of this country. And I was going to ask this question a little bit later, Advocate Batohi, but it seems apt to put it in right now because you've personalized it so much in terms of how you see your role and your purpose and your obligation to people who need answers, who need closure through the work that you do. I mean, the stats are there, and that was quite an impressive annual report. I mean, think about, you've made some history here with regard to, for example, the asset forfeiture unit and their recovery rates and so on. But when you talk about thinking about the faces of ordinary South Africans, I mean, we have to think about families who don't have the answers today, and some of them come from this last lash of the dragon's tail in the Nkabinde inquiry, this last piece as you heading towards your exit, essentially. And I'm thinking of the family of Kwazi and Ndlovu. I'm thinking about appeals that they had made to your office for certain evidence that should have been, things like the ballistics reports, things like the post-mortem report, to have been tested in court, for them to have a real chance at justice for their boy. And on this very momentous day, I mean, what do you say to the family, to the Ndlovus? What I would like to say to them is that, and I've got to be careful because this matter is still the subject of the inquiry. And I've got to be very careful that I don't say things that compromise the integrity of the process. But I can say what I did say at the inquiry at the time. And so this is public knowledge already, so I can repeat this. After the decision to withdraw racketeering charges were made, I then sent all of the dockets, including the docket involving the deceased Kwazi, the young 16-year-old boy, back to the DPP and I hope I'm not, I should, I'm just very wary of, but I did say this in the inquiry, so I'm thinking I can say it again because it is public knowledge. And the DPP then declined to prosecute and said to them, I'm withdrawing only racketeering charges. The potential murder charges in all of those dockets, you need to review that and decide whether individual police officers should be charged with murder in those dockets. The DPP initially declined all of the dockets. They came to me, I looked at them, and this particular docket, and it's all documented, I sent it back to the DPP and I said, please look at this docket because I have a concern here. They reconsidered that decision and decided to prosecute in that matter. Now, that's all I'm going to say now but the point I want to make is that I sent it back to the DPP because I knew how important justice for this family was. The point of this is that what happened in the actual trial, I don't want to say anything about that because the issue of the reports, etc., has emerged now in the inquiry. And I'm sure we'll have to deal with that. The DPP KZN may have to deal with it. And so I don't want to deal with the conduct of the accused. But what I can say is it's very difficult because the case is still in, and I wish I could say these things, but I can't. But what I do want to say to the family is that matter was, we will at the end of this process know whether it was prosecuted properly or not and whether there should be any consequences.
It circles back, Advocate Batohi, to the institutional capacity of the NPA and the decision-making around the viability of cases that are court-ready, that are evidence-ready, and have a good prospect for a positive outcome either way. Either, the evidence exonerates the accused or it secures a conviction and a prison sentence. If you aren't there to champion in your individual capacity certain cases, they will simply fall through the cracks. What is your observation then on the institutional reinforcement that still is the work of the NPA under the mantle of Advocate Mothibe going forward?
So look, what I want to say is that you've got to understand that the NDPP cannot personally deal with every single case in this country, even every single high-profile case. We deal with almost 800,000 cases every year. And the directors of public prosecutions, the heads of the NPA in the provinces, are the ones that have the legal authority to take decisions to prosecute or not to prosecute, and are also responsible for the day-to-day management of their staff and of the cases. And they are very senior. They are presidential appointments, and they are expected to do that. A national director is not expected to do that. But a national director is a review authority. So if a person is unhappy with the decision of a DPP, the NDPP can review it. But of course, what you can do is with particularly your high-profile cases that have a lot of reputational risk to the NPA in the event that we fail, we have a process in place whereby the DPPs are required to report to a national director about progress in cases, about support that they need, additional capacity, etc. And so I think that's where I would say, Advocate Mothibe, will have to, pay very careful attention to those cases that have reputational risk for the NPA. What we've put in place after some of the cases, the setbacks with regard to some high-profile cases, Omotoso, New Lane was the first one which you heard the Constitutional Court overturned. I only heard that message now.
It's a celebration for your prosecutors because they can go back and prosecute.
I will touch on it. It's huge because the New Lane matter was the one matter that me, as the national director, it was the linchpin that the media, a particular media house in a documentary used to lynch the national director. And now the Constitutional Court has actually overturned the decision, dismissed the appeal, and now the matter must go back to court. It's truly vindicated the NPA and the prosecutors in court. So, it's really important. So these are cases. So these setbacks, what we did, going back to the setbacks, New Lane being one of them, Omotoso being another one, we've put in place a case risk management process. So each high-profile case, the DPPs must assess the risks in the case. What are, whether it's support, capability, witnesses, protection, etc., and there must be proper risk mitigation plans to make sure that we minimize these setbacks in the future in the NPA.
It's interesting about the New Lane one, as you say, it's huge for you as the NPA, because I was going to ask about aspects from the state capture inquiry and whether, you would have liked to have resolved other cases and gotten more of the big fish for South Africa. As you say, you can talk about the work and the progress that the NPA has made collectively, and you shared that in the annual report. But sometimes when you have these high-profile cases, they capture the public's imagination a lot more. So a win in that arena means, exponential reputational benefit. So are you hopeful that, again, the circle gets closed on this one? But which other state capture cases do you wish could have been resolved while you were still in office, and which could have secured big fish?
What I certainly hope is that the media now that lynched the NPA when the New Lane matter, the setback in the New Lane matter, that we have equally strong headlines now that the NPA has been vindicated, because that never happens. And so, yes, this was one of those. Estina is another one. The asbestos matter in the Free State is another one. The Transnet matter that's in court next week is another one. So these are all very high-profile matters that I hope will be able to move through the system, and we get to the point where there's a conviction or an acquittal.
It was quite startling hearing you say at the end of the delivery of that report that the NPA needs a commission of inquiry. When we think about how much weight that carries when you say it, just having a view of what's happening in the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. I mean, every day the hairs in the back of your neck stand up. When you hear the extent of the allegations that are being made, now the president has said we need to then go after suspensions and proper investigations and maybe get some arrests out of this. That's serious. So when you make that analogy between what's happening in our police and law enforcement complex and the NPA, there's something you have in mind, more specifically, that you think, hey, we need that level of scrutiny here right now.
Let me hasten to, clarify what I meant by that. The Zondo Commission actually did a lot of work looking at the capture of the criminal justice system. And, there was a lot of investigation that went into it. I know a number of NPA staff members made deposed to affidavits. There was a lot of investigation that went into capture of the criminal justice system. But because of the time and the budget, etc., the Commission was not able to complete its work with regard to capture of the criminal justice system. And in many ways, the Zondo Commission has done incredibly good work. But sadly, by not finishing off the work on the capture of the criminal justice system, what it did was it looked at a whole lot of other state-owned entities and important work, finished that work, and then handed that over to a criminal justice system that nothing had changed, and said, here's the work, do it and do it fast. But with a completely depleted criminal justice system. So a lot of work that I really wish that Zondo Commission was able to finish its work with regard to the criminal justice system. Then perhaps we wouldn't have, Madlanga, there's organized crime, etc., but I think it would have addressed some of the issues. But given that we didn't have that moment, like SARS had its Nugent moment, so Commissioner Kieswetter was able to, deal with the challenges in SARS. NPA didn't have that. So in that sense, I welcome the fact that Judge Madlanga now, the Madlanga Commission, is looking into this. Yeah. And, that whatever challenges, whatever, if there are people that are corrupt in the criminal justice system, we need to get them out of the system. So that is why I'm hoping that in the Madlanga, and I hasten to add, the majority of prosecutors are really good, committed, dedicated people. But those that are not, there's no place for them in the NPA.
As you leave, you're handing over the baton to Advocate Mothibe, and you've already said a few things in relation to him. Of course, he becomes, I think, you're the first NDPP to actually hand over a capability review, a formal handover report, and also you've acknowledged that there's a lot of unfinished business in the NPA. On this, your last day, what is your biggest regret and your biggest accomplishment in office?
That's a tough one. I think my biggest regret is that we don't have those most responsible for state capture that have been held accountable in terms of cases being seen through to the end. That is my biggest disappointment, is that that has not happened. In terms of the greatest accomplishments, I would think it is our innovation with regard to the asset recovery strategies that have brought in a lot of money into the state coffers. And I would think that our partnerships with business in setting up the digital evidence unit, which is a state-of-the-art data analytical capacity, which is, I mean, I visited the capacity just last week. They've just started. They've got 13 cases from the IDAC, which I think will be a game changer in terms of being able to deal swiftly with analysis of big data. I mean, evidence today is in our cell phones, on laptops. So I think that has been those two things. If I had to single out, without actually, there are thousands of prosecutors across the country that are doing such incredibly good work. And the fact that our performance from 50% 4 years ago is now at close to 90% this year. And our targets have not dropped, you know, I think is really, I must commend the prosecutors across the country for doing that. It's really incredible work.
Why do you think, against the backdrop of, you know, what you shared with all of these improvements and I mean, or innovations even in the NPA under your tenure, and I made a list of a couple of them. The renewed pursuit of apartheid-era crimes and criminals, the expansion of the victim-centered justice centers, the consistently high conviction rates, the asset recovery. I mean, I can go on and on. I just made a few notes on some of the highlights. Are you regretful that perhaps these last 2 months, and, you know, I think you almost, I think you reflected on that just a moment ago, that, you know, why did they have to come almost at the end when you're now leaving, that threatens to overshadow this legacy of yours? Why do you think that the story that you shared in this annual report isn't the first thing that South Africans are talking about?
Well, sadly, you know, it is possible that what's happened in the past 2 months might overshadow everything. But I would like South Africans to really, you know, it's fine to be criticized, you know, when you criticize from a position of having all the information. So I would say that this is, you know, a process that I have to go through, and it's not finished. As I said, I will do what I have to in this process, and the legal representation is being sorted out, and I will, you know, do what I'm expected to do.
When you say you wish you could have reacted differently,
yeah,
what does that look like?
I think I was a bit emotional at the time, and I must always, you know, remember that I need to be rational. You know, that is what I try to be. I'm a lawyer, but I think it was a traumatic experience. Let me put it that way, and I think maybe I reacted in a way that I should not have.
Why was it traumatic?
Did you not watch?
I watched it, but I mean, you know, the sense, and I can editorialize on what I think was going on internally, but I think...
I don't think I want to comment on that now, because I will have to reflect on what exactly happened at the commission, and I don't want to do that. But it's not good. You know, I want the evidence, I want a fair process, and I want an environment where witnesses must feel that they can, you know, speak comfortably and freely, and that at the end of the day, this inquiry is a fact-finding, and they must be able to get all the relevant facts and make a finding. So, yeah.
In closing, Advocate Batohi, because I know you want to say goodbye to your people as well on your last day, you said in reflecting on your team, when you needed a shoulder to cry on, they were there for you. This isn't an easy job. And we've said always, it seemed as if it was a poison chalice, being the NDPP. besides your life philosophy, which you shared with us, which connects you to your purpose for why you do this, and this is every South African that requires justice, what else do you do to decompress and to shake it off when you're facing a lot of scrutiny? And as you say, and you've shared quite openly your thoughts on your feelings and your reactions. What do you do to decompress and get through these days when it's very hard?
As I said, besides my philosophy study, I go to gym, and I love gardening.
Those poor dumbbells.
And no, I actually need a punching bag. You know, one of those ones for boxing punching bag.
Yeah.
I think I need one of those.
Oh, you haven't got it yet?
Yeah, no, I don't have it
So
yet.
what do you do? What are you doing at the gym?
I go to gym. I enjoy the Pilates classes,
Okay.
and so I do a lot of things in the gym. I love walking in the morning, and I love sports, so I watch all kinds of sports. Tennis, Australian Open at the moment. I love Formula One racing. Okay. I love myself playing a bit of squash if I can. Although getting
you take
old
it out
now,
on the court.
It's a bit hard, but I haven't done. That's what I'm going to start soon. But I live in a golf course, so maybe I'll start taking up golf soon as well.
Okay, we'll check in on you and what your handicap is. Advocate Batohi, thank you for your time.
You so
I know
much.
it was a hard
Thank
day
you.
today, and it's your last day, so go well.
Thank you very much.
And we'll continue to monitor this organization, this NPA.
Please do, and we will continue to be accountable to the people of this country.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Stephen, she's getting ready to swap those heels for flats, I imagine. And as I
shoes.
say, the much coveted glass of Sauv Blanc a little bit later. We're not drinking, I promise. We're heading straight back to the office, and it's back to you.
Iman Rappetti, thank you very much indeed for that fascinating interview with Shamila Batohi, the outgoing head of the National Prosecuting Authority. So many questions that Iman was able to put to her.